My name is Nadia, and I've lived with my aunt, Rachel, since I was a child. My parents died in a car accident, and Auntie Rachel took me in. She was a kind and caring person, and I loved her like a mother. In fact, she is my mother. But everything changed when Auntie Rachel got married to a man named Michael. At first, he seemed nice, but I soon realized that he was always staring at me. I tried to ignore him, because it made me feel uncomfortable. They have been married for 5 years, yet no child, and my uncle refused to stop his daily stare and indirect advances towards me. One day, I walked in on my Uncle Michael watching a romance movie with my Auntie Rachel. He was staring at me again, and I was so ashamed because he couldn't even hide it from his wife. Later that evening, Auntie Rachel came to my room and warned me to stay away from her husband Michael. I was confused and scared. Why was Auntie Rachel sternly warning me away from her husband? Didn't she trust me anymore? The next day, I was cleaning the house when my aunt's husband Michael walked in on me. He just finished having his bath. He was wearing only a towel, and I felt my face grow hot. I apologized and tried to leave, but he asked me to stay, knowing fully well that his wife is home. He dropped the towel, and I felt like I was going to faint. "Don't be shy, Nadia," he said, his voice low and husky. "You're a grown woman now. Don't you like what you see?" I was horrified. I covered my eyes and ran out of the room. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to tell my Auntie Rachel, but another part of me was scared of what might happen. That evening, my auntie came to my room again. "Nadia, I've arranged for you to go live with my friend, Auntie Patricia," she said, her voice cold and distant. I was shocked. "Why? What did I do wrong?" I asked, but Auntie Rachel just shook her head. "It's for your own good, Nadia. Auntie Patricia is a kind and caring person. She'll take care of you." But I knew that wasn't the real reason. Auntie Rachel was trying to get rid of me because she thought I was a threat to her marriage. And Auntie Patricia, the same person she gossiped about. I've overheard her say Auntie Patricia was a lesbian. I felt a surge of fear and uncertainty. What was Auntie Rachel trying to do? Was she only trying to protect her marriage, or was there something more to this? The next day, my Aunt Rachel returned home with a lady. I had never seen her before. She was tall and striking, with an air of confidence that made her both intimidating and intriguing. My aunt introduced her as Auntie Patricia, and I greeted her. "Oh. Is this Auntie Patricia I have often heard of?" I said to myself. As the evening wore on, I retreated to my room to study. The house was quiet except for the occasional muffled laughter from the living room. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on my door. When I opened it, there was Auntie Patricia, her sharp features softened by a disarming smile. "Can you show me where the restroom is?" she asked sweetly. "Of course," I replied, leading her to the visitors' toilet down the hallway. "Actually," she said hesitantly, "would you mind if I used yours instead? It feels cleaner." I hesitated but saw no harm in it and allowed her in. When she was done, instead of leaving, she lingered. "This is a lovely room," she said, her eyes scanning my space. "Very cozy." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a bit uneasy. She began asking me questions like where I studied, my hobbies, my plans for the future. Her tone was friendly, but there was something unsettling about her gaze. Before I knew it, she had closed the door. Her voice lowered, and her questions turned more personal, more invasive. She started talking about things I wasn't comfortable discussing, relationships, intimacy, things I avoided or maybe not of age yet to discuss such, I always thought to myself. I tried to excuse myself, but each time, she found a way to block my exit, either by standing too close or pulling me back into the conversation. Then, without warning, she leaned in and pecked my cheek. "I like you, Nadia," she whispered with smile, before walking out as if nothing had happened. I stood frozen, trying to process what had just occurred. Minutes later, my aunt stormed into my room, her face twisted. "Do you like Auntie Patricia?" she asked abruptly. "No," I replied instantly. "She's strange and..." strange? My aunt cut me off, her voice rising. You call her strange, but you're the one peeping at my husband whenever he is having his bath? You're the disgusting one. My heart sank. Jesus. Auntie, that's not true. Don't lie to me, Nadia, she yelled, jabbing a finger into my forehead. I saw you, I listened to you guys' conversation. This is just the beginning. I'm sorry, Auntie, I was scared to tell you as I feel it might cause trouble in your marriage or even put me in. Before I could finish, she stormed out, leaving me shaken and confused. Later that evening, after I had showered, my aunt called me into the living room. Auntie Patricia was there, sitting comfortably beside my uncle, who seemed oblivious to the tension. Nadia, my aunt said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, wouldn't you like to spend your holidays with my friend Patricia? She thinks you're such a delightful young lady. Auntie Patricia's eyes locked on mine, a knowing smile playing on her lips. No, Ma, I managed to reply, my voice barely audible. I excused myself and rushed to my room, locking the door behind me. My heart was pounding. Something wasn't right, and I think that my aunt had some ulterior motive other than just saving her marriage. Later that evening, I was startled by a soft knock at my door. When I opened it, Auntie Patricia stood there, her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. May I come in? She asked, her tone gentle but insistent. I hesitated. Of course, Ma, I replied, stepping aside. She walked in, her heels clicking against the wooden floor, and perched on the edge of my bed. You have such a cozy room, you know, right? She said, rather asking, her eyes scanning every corner before settling on me. Sit with me, won't you? Reluctantly, I sat down. Auntie Patricia began asking me questions about my hobbies, my future plans. Her tone was casual, but there was an unsettling intensity in her gaze. Then, the questions shifted. She started prying into deeply personal topics, things I wasn't comfortable discussing. When I tried to stand, she placed a firm hand on my lap, her nails digging slightly into my skin. Relax, Nadia, she said softly. I froze, unsure of how to react. But when her hand slid higher, I pushed it away, my voice trembling as I said, Please, stop, Ma. I don't like this. Auntie Patricia leaned in closer, her perfume overwhelming. You'll like it eventually, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. Trust me. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and we both turned. It was my uncle, Auntie Rachel's husband. What's going on here? He asked, his eyes darting between us. I was already shaking. I couldn't find the words. Auntie Patricia stood abruptly, smoothing her dress. Oh, nothing, she said with a forced laugh, just getting to know your lovely niece. She brushed past him and left the room, her heels echoing down the hallway. I faced my uncle, tears welled up in my eyes. I tried to speak but couldn't. I know what they are trying to do. Don't worry, I got you. My uncle said, which made me shake the more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the scene over and over, my stomach twisting with dread. Was my uncle on my side, or had he seen something else entirely? The next morning, my uncle pulled me aside after breakfast. Nadia, are you okay? He asked, his tone unusually kind. I hesitated. Yes, uncle. Thank you. He gave a small nod. If Patricia bothers you again, tell me. I'll handle it. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. At dinner, my uncle announced, Nadia won't be spending her holidays anywhere. She'll stay right here. My aunt's fork clattered onto her plate. Her face darkened, and she excused herself without a word. That night, muffled voices from the living room woke me. I crept down the hallway and listened. My aunt was furious, she and her husband were having an argument over me. You're ruining everything. Do you have any idea what Patricia can do for us? She's a child, Rachel, my uncle shot back. I won't allow it. The argument grew heated, but I retreated before they noticed me. Something sinister was happening, and I was caught in the middle of it. The next morning, I was in the kitchen washing plates when my uncle entered. He placed a hand on my shoulder, startling me. "You're such a good girl, Nadia," he said softly. But then his hand slid to my waist, and he leaned in, pressing his lips to my neck. I shoved him away immediately. "Uncle, stop." His expression twisted into one of anger. "You think you can escape? You have two choices, me or Patricia. Either way, you're mine," he snarled before storming out. I stood there, trembling, as the weight of his words sank in. My own family was a trap, and I had no one to trust. I'm shaking as I stand at the sink, the water still running, my heart racing. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare. My uncle's words echo in my mind, "You have two choices, me or Patricia. Either way, you're mine." I'm trapped, and I don't know how to escape. My breaths came in shallow gasps as I tried to make sense of everything. The walls of the house seemed to close in around me. I turn off the tap and dry my hands, trying to calm myself down. I need to think clearly and come up with a plan. But my mind is a jumble of fear and anxiety. I slowly make my way to my room, trying not to make any noise. I lock the door behind me and lean against it, feeling like I'm in a prison. I'll never forget the day my life changed forever. It was a Thursday morning, and I was standing in my room, trying to decide whether to run away or face my problems head-on because my uncle has refused to stop trying to have his way with me. My aunt on the other side gave up on forcing me to go stay with Auntie Patricia since her husband wasn't in support of it at all. He even threatened to leave her if she forced me to go stay with Auntie Patricia. That Thursday morning, my aunt had left for work early, as she always did, but I knew my uncle was still in the house, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his next opportunity to pounce. As I stood in my room, trying to make sense of my thoughts, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something might go wrong today. I was still on my thoughts, when I heard a knock on my door. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "I know as my aunt's husband, Uncle Michael," I stammered. "Yes, who is that?" "It's your Uncle Nadia, open the door." Trying to keep his voice steady, "Can I come in?" I opened the door, my heart racing with fear. My uncle walked in. I knew I had to be careful, that I had to tread carefully. I dropped to my knees, pleading with him to leave me alone. "Uncle, please," I said, my voice cracking with desperation. "Just let me stay here. I promise I'll leave as soon as I get employed. I'm on job hunt." My uncle walked down and sat on my bed, studying me silently. I could see the wheels turning in his head, could see the calculation in his eyes. He was weighing his options, deciding what to do next. And then, he spoke, his voice low and menacing. "I'll consider it, Nadia," he said. "But only if you give me what I've been asking for." I knew what he was asking for, knew what he wanted. And I knew that I couldn't give it to him, couldn't surrender to his demands. I shook my head, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm sorry, Uncle," I said. "But I won't do it. It's wrong." My uncle's face twisted with anger, his eyes blazing with fury. He rose from the bed, his movements swift and menacing. He reached down, pulling me up to my feet, and before I could react, he pressed his lips against mine. I was too stunned to move, too scared to react. "I will tell Mummy, I will tell your wife," I threatened. My uncle just laughed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You dare not," he said. "I mean, you're not going to tell her," he smiled this time. I knew I had to think fast, had to come up with a plan to escape. I pretended to agree to his demands, all the while thinking of a way to get out of there. But my uncle was too clever. He saw through my plan. He grabbed the door and locked it immediately, swinging the keys to my eyes with a menacing laugh. He now grabbed me, holding me down on the bed. I struggled and kicked, but he was too strong. I was trapped, caught in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. And then, I stretched out my hand to grab the scissors on the desk beside my bed. With a surge of adrenaline, I reached out and grabbed it, plunged it into my uncle's head. He froze, his eyes wide with shock. Blood gushed from the wound as he collapsed onto the floor, lifeless. I didn't hesitate. I quickly scrambled to my feet and grabbed my bag. I ran out of the room, not stopping until I found myself in his room, searching his wardrobe for money, found some and took the money, ran back to my room to check if he is still breathing. My fear got hold of me as I couldn't detect if he was still alive. I knew I had to get out of there, had to escape. I grabbed my bag and ran so fast, not stopping until I was sure I can't be found easily. I hopped on a taxi and zoomed off. I've been in hiding ever since. I'm in a faraway land. I don't know what has become of my aunt, if her husband survived or not, if she will be able to forgive me. What I surely know is that I'm on the run and wanted. But I know I'll never be able to go back. I'll never be able to see my aunt again. I'll have to start over. I'm sorry, Aunt. I hope you will be able to forgive me and live a happy life without regrets. Mr. Michael, Nadia's uncle, died and was found naked in his pool of blood. That was when Nadia's Aunt Rachel believed all the things Nadia had said. She wept and cried so much. After mourning her husband, she accepted her fate and moved on with life. But she is definitely looking for Nadia and wants to see her. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more.